Hello, word nerds! Happy Sunday! We are live. It is October the 3rd, which means it's Preptober. We've got 1 month until National Novel Writing Month. National Novel Writing Month, if you are joining us and aren't sure what that is a month in which lots of writers get together on the internet to try and write 50,000 words of a novel. 50K, about the length of a short novel. So you're trying to write a book in a month. And it is a lot of fun, and October has kind of become the unofficial, we prepare for NaNoWriMo during this month. Today we're doing it in workshop format, but it's going to be a little different from our regular workshops. We're going to be primarily focused on just talking to you about plot and structure, and then we're going to give you writing sprints that are more designed to be like free write brainstorming type of sprints rather than trying to kind of guide you through come up with your midpoint twist. Like, you're just gonna be able to do whatever is feeling right. So say hey if you're in the discussion section. Let us know if you're going to be doing Nano. What are you going to be working on? And yeah, opening question for everyone before we move right in. That way we give people some time to get here. How much do you guys plot when you are leading up to NaNoWriMo? Let's start with Emma.
It's not too different from how much I would normally plot, because I only really do Nano if I just happen to be at the right point, like ready to start writing something. But I generally for Nano, like I want to know like kind of my major like plot points, like what happens at the middle, what happens like a quarter of the way through or whatever. And then like I usually for Nano, definitely I like to know like the first like maybe 5 scenes, what like a really like good description of what's going to happen in the first few scenes to really get me started. Because like if I, especially with Nano, if I like start on day 1 and I like don't know what the first 2 scenes are going to be about, then like I'm going to get really stuck trying to figure that out, and it's going to waste time for me. So
nice. Yeah, I typically like to have the bare bones like that as well. Just kind of like, what are my major plot points going to be? This time for Nano, I'm writing my first like extreme multi-POV novel, and so I'm going full every scene is plotted because it's just been that kind of year where I'm not going to finish it if I don't know where I'm going. But I'm very excited. What about you, Des?
I typically don't ever do detailed outlines. I am a very hardcore plantser normally, but you know, that's never worked for me before. So, you know, the definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So I'm going to try to plot like a lot. I recently read Save the Cat Writes a Novel, and it like blew my mind. I was like, oh, like this is, I understand. So yeah, I'll be plotting a lot for this one.
Nice. Rachel, what about you?
Sure. So I've never done Nano in the capacity of most people here. But like whenever I start a novel, usually I try and do basic plotting, because I've been on the side of doing nothing and then it going very weirdly, or doing too much and then it feeling stunted. So I'm kind of, yeah, I like to usually have like a little bit of some ideas where my character arcs are going, and like the midpoint, and kind of like a vague idea of where I want to end up. But a lot of the time I'm like, we'll see how it goes. And maybe I'll decide that like this fun thing in the second chapter is something I'm going to put in later, you know, for fun.
Aaron?
I'm already an extreme plotter, and then particularly for Nano, if I don't plot out everything, I will get very blocked and lose my momentum. So I have to do it like a chapter by chapter, scene by scene outline for Nano.
And Kyra?
I am probably the pantsiest word nerd. I do not do a lot of plotting, particularly not for Nano. I like to just kind of see where the story takes me. Because we do Preptober, sometimes go into it with like a little bit of a plan of where I want to end up. I usually do a lot of character work before, which is different than plot work, but not a lot of game plan for me.
Nice. I think character work definitely qualifies as plot, because like you know what direction they would guide the plot.
Yeah,
if you know them.
So it is some upfront work, but It's not an outline.
Yeah. Hi to everyone who's in the discussion section. We've got Ann Griswold here, Misty Kate, Dania. We've got Andrew. Raquel is here. Joe Catherine. It is great to virtually see you all. Headphone Books is here. It doesn't usually outline, but it is going to outline this year. Yeah, let us know if at any point you have any questions about plotting or National Novel Writing Month while we're reading anything. Just ask it in the discussion section and we will talk about it most likely. Today we're going to be focusing, we're going to start really broad and then we're going to kind of narrow our focus in to hopefully have something for everyone, whether you don't like to plot at all or if you like to plot a lot. We are going to be focusing primarily on 3-act structure, not because it's superior to any structure, just because it has the most wiggle room. I feel like there's a lot you can do with it. And, you know, every story's got a beginning, middle, and end. So, yeah, so that's what we're going to be doing. And we'll talk at the end about like different methods. If anyone has any different plot structures they like, we'll leave a little time for discussing that so that you can have other places to look if you just don't like 3-act structure. So we're going to kick it off with Emma. This is reversed. So Emma is going to talk a little.
All right. So I'm going to share my screen. 1 second. So one thing that I tend to do is use a spreadsheet for my plotting. Which I think can sometimes like seem like overkill or like really intense. But one of the things I like about it is that you can kind of customize it to like how in detail you want to go. And for me, it just like helps me to keep everything organized. And there are different ways you can use it depending on your needs. And obviously this won't be like everyone's cup of tea, especially if you aren't a plotter at all. But we wanted to kind of start out with this one as like a way that you can kind of organize your thoughts as we go through some of the other plotting methods if you want to use this. So this is kind of a template of what I use. I do change it depending on the book, but kind of the basic idea is down the left. I do like a row for every scene in the book. And then I also kind of at the beginning of each act or part of the book, I'll do like a row that's just kind of a summary of what's happening in that act. And as you may notice, for this one I used as an example Disney Beauty and the Beast, because I figured that's a story that most people are familiar with, and it's a pretty simple one. So yeah, spoilers. No, I did not put Act 3 on here, so no spoilers. Only the first 2 acts. Yeah, we're good. But so after the either chapters or scenes, whichever one you prefer, I usually just do like a summary of each scene. And then if it's a multiple point of view story, I'll put whose point of view the scene is in. This is one that I obviously would just delete this column if I only have one point of view. Another one that I sometimes use, sometimes don't, depending on the story, is this main plot column. Because in a lot of my books, the summary and the main plot are basically going to be the same thing. But the book that I originally made the spreadsheet for just had like a lot of different plots going on. And so it was useful in that one for me to just kind of like summarize everything that happened in the scene in one column and then like parse out like what in this scene is moving the main plot forward. And then I do columns for any subplots, which obviously you would customize to however many you have and what they are. And then personally, I choose to have some columns for, I just do character development in general, but you also could do like a column for each character that has an arc if you wanted to go that in depth. I do a column for like relationships between characters. And then if there's like a mystery element to the story, I'll do a column for like any clues or red herrings so that I can keep track of what clues I have dropped so far. And one thing that I like about this, because as much as this makes it seem like I'm really a hardcore plotter, I'm really not that hardcore of a plotter. But what's nice is that I can fill in what is useful and like leave other parts blank and go back to it later. So like if this seems like too much for you, one thing that, but you want to like try it maybe. What I do a lot of the time it's just like these first maybe like few columns are the ones I fill out. Like I'll fill out the summary of the scene. I might do whose point of view. Maybe I'll get into the main plot or the subplots if like it's really relevant to those. But a lot of times like the character development and the relationships and the clues and all of that, I actually don't fill in until I'm doing revisions. So I like that this is something I can use like throughout the life cycle of a book. And I can fill in more information. It's also really easy to like move things around or add in extra scenes or take scenes out. So I really like that. I used to try and like write everything down on a piece of paper, but then I want to change something and I have to get a whole new like notebook or whatever. So this made it easy to just like change things as I go because my plot does tend to change a lot as I write the book. So that's like a really very quick overview to this. We do have a link to this template in the description of the video, and it's set to like view only. So you can make a copy of it into your own Google Drive. I do it in Google Drive. And there are, as you notice, some notes in these that kind of guide you to what these different columns mean. So you are welcome to use that if you would like. I'm going to stop screen sharing for a minute. If you want to use that tonight or in general for plotting, you are welcome to. And of course, like I said, you can always customize it to the things that are most useful for you that you want to track in your story. Those are the things I like to track, like my characters and their relationships, but there may be other things that you want to do. So sometimes I'll even put, if the like world building is really important, sometimes I'll have a column for world building to be like, these are the pieces of information that I like revealed or explained or showed in the world, so that I can like keep track of like, oh, did I ever like explain how this thing works? I can have it like in the spreadsheet sometimes, so that can be really useful too. So for our first kind of writing sprint time, of course, do whatever plotting, brainstorming works for you, but kind of if you want to use the spreadsheet or if you're just kind of getting started plotting your Nano project, kind of the prompt for this is to just take, we're going to do 7 minutes and take some time to think about the basics of your plot, which you can use the spreadsheet or you can just use a piece of paper if you want to do that, and to consider things like what is the main plot of your story, what are the subplots or subplot, who are your POV characters, who are the major characters who are going to have character arcs, and then also what are the first couple scenes. Like I said, that's really important to me when I'm doing Nano. Like I need to know where I'm starting on day one, just to get me started so I don't sit in front of a blank screen and don't know what the first chapter is about. So we're going to, like I said, we're going to take about 7 minutes for that, just kind of do some free writing and brainstorming about the basics of your plot. So we'll be back at the 54.
in time. How's everyone feeling?
I'm here. I'm totally here.
We've had some really good comments. Kayla Amanda mentioned the color coding possibilities are endless on a spreadsheet. I love that. Lots of people participating in Nano. I didn't ask you all, show of hands, who's doing Nano this year in some capacity?
Damn, okay.
Nice.
In
Just me and Rachel.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, considering that I have like a major research paper this semester, like that's just gonna be
Basically
that's
Nano.
my Nano. I'm basically gonna be writing it most of November anyway, so
Nice. Same mug.
so you know. So halfway through and I was like I can't, I have to go get it. I can't let Megan be the only cool one on stream.
All right. So we're going to move in and talk a little bit more about 3-act structure. If you're joining us a little bit late, we are talking about plotting, and we are kind of starting really broad. So Emma's spreadsheet method, which you can really adapt to just about anything. You can make it even just a list of scene ideas that you throw in there as they come to you and you organize later. I'm going to talk just a little bit about what 3-act structure is. In case you are not familiar with it, it's a very commonly referenced structure for storytelling. It was first referenced as like a storytelling structure in Sid Field's screenplay, which I did not know. I've heard it was like Aristotle and stuff, but apparently that is a misattribution. And the first time people looked at it as like, this is a storytelling structure, was allegedly Sid Field.
They only lived a few years apart, so
yeah, totally. Totally contemporaries, you know. So yeah, let me get my screen up. When we say 3-act structure, this is the general structure that we're talking about. You've got Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3, setup, confrontation, and resolution. So we're going to go into those 3 acts a little bit deeper. Act 1 is the setup or the dramatic question. So in Act 1, you establish your major characters, any relationships between those characters, the world, and then you hit pretty early on what is known as the inciting incident. This is the first thing that spurs your character to action. This doesn't necessarily mean like running down an alley action. This just means like what is making your character do something for the first time that is going to lead them on the path of their plot. And the character's response to this inciting incident over time leads to a new, more dramatic incident known as plot point 1. This is like the first big thing that really kind of turns your character's ideology on its head. So kind of the first big thing that they have to deal with. Then we move into Act 2, which is rising action. So in the rising action, your protagonist is repeatedly trying to solve problems thrown up by plot point 1, by the inciting incident, but they find themselves in increasingly worse situations overall. This doesn't mean that every scene has to just be worse and worse and worse and worse. It's good to have moments to take a breath, but overall, you're ramping up the tension in Act 2. While this tension is ramping up, your character does learn new skills that will help them learn more about themselves and learn what they need to defeat the antagonist later. My favorite part of Act 2 is the midpoint. Yeah, lots of stories have a shift or a twist here. I absolutely love a midpoint twist. And the reason I love it so much is because having a reversal here can help you not get completely lost in the second act, which is twice as big as Act 1 and 3. So yeah, one of the things that if I'm having a hard time figuring out, well, where do I want it to end? Where do I think it should begin? I try to think of like, well, what's a big thing that would be a good twist for the midpoint? And then Act 3, the end. The climax is part of Act 3. This is the scene or sequence of scenes in which your plot and major subplots reach their highest level of intensity. Ideally, you want to find a spot where all of these things can reach their highest moment of intensity in the same place. So if you're not sure what you want your climax to be, maybe look at the subplots that you brainstormed and think about, like, well, how can I get all of these things to go wrong in the same room? In this, the dramatic question is answered. I just realized I forgot to tell you what the dramatic question is. The dramatic question is kind of the promise of the premise. Like, is this person going to survive? Will the girl fall in love? Will these things happen? So the dramatic question is answered. Yes, they're going to fall in love. No, they're not going to survive. No matter what, after this, in all the falling action, your character leaves this story irrevocably changed. And then you have falling action, which is any questions left after the climax. You kind of wrap them up, give people a moment to exhale now that all of this has happened. And so once again, I'm going to show you. These are like the major points that if you're trying to plot according to 3-act structure, it's a good idea to try and come up with what these things are. This is what I most commonly try to come up with when I am plotting, because I like that, well, if I know this and plot point 1 and the midpoint, then I have a really solid roadmap, but I'm able to kind of deviate from that. I can go wherever I want if it feels like something is a better direction. And yeah, so let us know in the discussion section if you have any questions about 3-act structure. Get my screen down. I do have a link to that slideshow in the description box. We've got links to everything that we are referencing here tonight down there. So you can access them now. You can access them later if you're watching us not live later. Missy Kate said, I love Sid Field. Classic book. Hello to everyone who is joining us. Yeah, so let's move right on into, like we mentioned at the beginning, this is technically a workshop, but we aren't doing so much guided exercises as we are doing kind of free writing, brainstorming. We've talked about plot. Maybe now you like the idea of coming up with your midpoint and plot point 1. So you can take some time to try and brainstorm what those moments might be. If you don't like that, you can just keep going on in your spreadsheet. No rules. Does anyone have anything they want to say at this point? Anyone feeling any plot things? Okay. Let's do our free write, and then I will answer that Misty Kate question. So let's go for 12 minutes, and we'll start at the 3. End on a nice number. So we will go from the 3 to the 15 because time has no meaning. I'm gonna put this in the little banner thing and go. And that's time. How's everyone doing?
I just
Pretty
realized that the sun is in my eyes, and that's why I was so uncomfortable. Like, oh, that's why. I'm gonna close that blind. 1 second. Like, why am I getting a headache? Squinting into the sun.
I had some good questions that maybe we'll do before we talk about beat sheets, if that sounds good to you guys.
Yep, that sounds great.
All right. I also wanted to say, hey, Chandra's here in the comments. Hey, I was just watching a write-in this morning on Sarah Hoffman's channel. I believe that you were in, and it was really good. You guys all have great videos, so definitely, if y'all have YouTube channels, definitely shout it out in the description box. I've been obsessed with watching other people's write-ins now that I'm back in school. I like need them for homework. So yeah, we had a question from Misty Kate about how am I using Notion to help me prepare. Notion is kind of like a virtual bullet journal that I really like. I am a really big fan of Rebecca Mix's Notion templates. I will put a link to that in the discussion box. She's got a bunch of different like types you can use. There's like one for drafting, one for revisions. And I have one, I guess I could just show this one to you. I've taken one more thing out. Okay, I've taken all of the like spoilery details out. I'm pretty sure this is not for my Nano project. This is one that I'm letting simmer for much longer. So this is like, it'll have like your work in progress at a glance, and you can kind of switch out all the pictures. This work in progress is, we're baking a lot, but we're baking in Hill House is the premise. My goal would go here if I had one, and you could put like themes and like quiet goals. I want like one person to tell me I liked it. They liked it. One person to give me a $750 million book deal, you know, just the little things.
Start small, work your way up.
Yeah, she's got like stuff baked in for doing character sheets. And I really love this, which is like a chapters written thing. So yeah, that's really great. I will put a link to those templates in the discussion box if that seems like something you'd be interested in. Like I literally just copied the template over and then switched out the images and deleted anything that I didn't think would be useful to me. And that can be really fun and a really great way to kind of brainstorm some new ideas if you're feeling stuck. And then we had one other question from N. Griswold. I'm trying to brainstorm a good idea for a subplot that isn't romantic. What questions do you ask yourself when trying to discover a great subplot that ties into your main plot?
Got a comment on this. I saw this and I was excited about this question. So my approach to that would be going back to what, like, I like to focus on character arc. So like, where is my character at? Where do I want them to end up? And your main plot's going to be doing that as well, but you can find ways in your subplots to also do that. I'm going to take that as agreement. Excited agreement. So like I had a project a while ago where kind of I wanted the bigger character arc to be this character kind like who feels like she isn't deserving of love, finding that she is. Pretty basic theme sort of character arc. And it's the primary plot in that is a romance. So I wanted, other things going on kind of in the background. And so for me, something that could contribute to this arc of like her feeling not lovable and then coming to terms with the idea that she is, in fact, lovable. I had this kind of absent parent situation. That part of the reason she feels unlovable is not just because of her romantic life, but also because of this thing with her parent that then gets resolved. So there are a lot of, I really like doing other types of relationships as subplots, in this case, a parental relationship. You can do all sorts of like relationships with enemies or rivals. You can do relationships with friends, can be great subplots. But beyond just a sort of relationship-based subplot, anything that's going to like help contribute to the overarching themes. So I guess getting back to the original question of like, what questions do you ask yourself when you're brainstorming? For me, it's always like, where's my character at? What do they want? What do they need? And trying to find the tension between like what they want and what they need, and where I'm trying to get them over the course of the story. Helps me brainstorm like ways that that can be done outside of just the main plot.
Nice.
That's great advice. I'm definitely going to use that.
Thanks.
All right, let's move on to beat sheets.
Woo.
Just let me know when you want me to put that picture up.
You can go ahead and put it up now.
Okay.
I just picked it so you guys didn't have to just stare at us while I talk at you. So I'm going to talk about beat sheets. So like I said earlier in the chat that I recently read Save the Cat Writes a Novel, which is great. It's a book about plotting. And so, yeah, I'm going to kind of go over some of the beats. I won't go in like super depth because like that would take a really long time. But I love beat sheets. I think it breaks a novel down into very manageable pieces. It, works for my brain. And my favorite way to actually plot is a beat sheet, like using the beats from Save the Cat, but with Emma's spreadsheet method. Emma made a video about it like a year or so ago. And that's like all I've ever used is the combination of these two things. So yeah, I guess I'll just start talking about it. So it is 3-act structure, but if you are super fond of like 4-act structure, you can kind of see in this picture, it breaks Act 2 up into like Act 2A and Act 2B. So it's super flexible for whatever like outlining process you like. So the first couple of like beats, the first one is the opening image. So that is like your before in the world. So, your character doing like their day-to-day life or something that will, be able to show a difference later in the novel. It doesn't have to be like, wake up, go to school, eat breakfast, things like that. You definitely want to make it interesting. After that, it's the themes stated. So this is typically where you start your character arc for your main character. You want to show like what flaws they have, kind of give a hint to the journey that they're going to go on. The setup is the exploration of the hero's status quo life and all of its flaws. It's where you learn like what the hero looks like sometimes before like what their life looks like before the transformation. And this is also where a lot of your side characters will be introduced. And your setup, is typically longer than those first 2 beats. And then you have your catalyst or your inciting incident. So this is the thing that happens that makes everything go crazy. And if we didn't have this point, then we would not have an interesting book. So whatever it is, Harry Potter, it's like he finds out he's a wizard and then he gets whisked on, this journey. So that is the catalyst. And then the last part for Act 1 is the debate. So that's the, should I go? Should I not? Like, my life is great here. Do I really want to go and like upset, the status quo of my life? And of course they typically say yes. Otherwise, again, very, very boring story. Then you have the break into 2. And so this is your character's first taste of this new world, new, thing that's happening in their life, whatever your story is about. For example, I'll give a quick example. My NaNo novel is basically just going to be Survivor in space. So that would be where my main character starts this journey of being in space and playing the game of Survivor. After you have your break into 2, you have your B story. So a lot of times you'll meet more side characters. This also goes into fun and games, which comes right after your B story. I kind of think of your B story beat as almost your inciting incident to the fun and games. And fun and games, as you can see in this image, is like a big chunk. especially of Act 2A. And this is the promise of the premise. So if you are pitching the story as like I said, mine is Survivor in Space, this would be the chunk where we would have a lot of those games, a lot of like that promise on the premise. You are going to be seeing like Survivor in Space, or like for example, the Selection series was basically like a futuristic bachelorette or bachelor, and so that's where we saw America in the house. And another really good thing about Save the Cat, if you go to the website, they have a ton of different books and movies that break down into those beats, so you can get more of an example of what slots into these beats. That's important. After fun and games, you have your midpoint turn. So this is typically the exact 50% of your novel, but of course that can change. But this is usually either the first or second like win for your character, or they have like a false victory where they think they're getting ahead and they're really not. And then after that, you can see there's another really big chunk, and that's bad guys close in. So if you have like an actual bad guy, you're upping the tension. You're really pushing your character through these trials as the bad guys close in and things are looking not so great for your character. Then right after your bad guys close in, you have all is lost. So this is like that darkest moment, like nothing will ever be the same. I can't possibly do this. Like, why did I decide to do this? Which also right after that comes the dark night of the soul, which is the reaction to everything that's happened so far. So it's important to make sure your character is reacting to things that are happening to them, and not just kind of like puzzle pieces that are like, okay, now you're going to go here, and then now you're going to go here. Like, they need to react to like everything that happened in Bad Guys Close In. We're almost done. So that's the end of Act 2. And as you can see, Act 3 is probably the shortest. It only has 3 beats. You have the break into 3, which is the aha moment. The hero realizes what they have to do to fix the problems. A lot of times, if it's like an ensemble cast, like maybe your group is coming together and saying, no, we're not going to let this beat us. We're going to come together and we're going to win. So that would be that moment. And then the finale, either your hero wins or loses that final battle, whatever it is. Obviously, it doesn't have to be a actual battle. It can even be like an internal struggle, but that moment that everything comes to a head and either it's resolved or it's not. And then lastly, we have our final image. And that's why your opening image is so important, because it's going to directly contrast what we were seeing in that opening image. So this is your character's final, completion of their arc. If they were selfish before, they've learned how to be caring. If they, didn't care before, they've learned to, find things that are important. And so that is kind of the end of Act 3. And that was my very long version of what beat sheets are and what those beats are.
No, that was awesome.
That was amazing, Des.
Yeah.
Epic. Very thorough. Thank you.
I love that. I added the image into the slideshow that is linked down below. And there's also a link to like Jessica Brody's intro to beat sheets for writing a novel down in that description as well.
Perfect. So for our little writing sprint, we can start at the 30 and go for 10 minutes. And then I think that it would be good to think about that opening image and that closing image. So think about where your characters start, where they end. I think for me, at least, it's easier to fill in everything after I have those 2 moments. But you could also just, free write too, if that's also an option. So we can start at the 30 and go to the 40.
All right, I'll get that info in a little banner.
Perfect.
And if you're liking these things, please like and subscribe. We're really close to 12K, and it would be really cool to hit it during NaNo. It feels like we've been so close to 12K for so many years. So yeah, like and subscribe.
Yes. All right, it is the 30, so we will meet back here at the 40.
And time. That one went fast.
Yeah, seriously.
I like Notion.
Right? It's so
It's
fun.
so great.
I saw earlier Misty Kate mentioned using Airtable as like a plotting spreadsheet, and you can add pictures to it. And so I've been eyeing that this whole time. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. We're approaching the end of our chat. Wanted to talk briefly on like other plotting methods. Are there other plotting methods outside of 3-act that any of you have used in the past or tried out in the past?
I do 4-part, which is basically 3-act by another name. It's really similar. It's basically kind of like when Des was showing the beat sheet. It breaks up Act 2 into 2 different parts so that you get 4 parts total. And so it still has like that same plot point 1, midpoint, and plot point 2. But there's also a couple of like pinch points that are in the middle of parts 2 and 3, so middle of Act 2 basically. And I like that just because it gives me a couple more plot points in the middle of the story, because I find like you need as much info about the middle of the story as possible to avoid the whole sagging middle. So
I tried the hero's journey like a couple of times and found it a little too restricting. Like it's very prescriptive. So
I've used the snowflake method a couple of times to kind of like start with the core of an idea and slowly build out. I don't think I've ever actually completed it as it is designed, but I do like the way it builds on itself as a way to like see what you have to begin with and kind of flesh out where you're missing pieces.
I've kind of dabbled in 5-act because I study a lot of literature, and so a lot of that is plays, and a lot of particularly like Shakespeare has a lot of 5-act plays. And so I haven't like fully like immersed myself in that, but I do like that idea because sort of like the like 4-point or like beat sheets where it splits the middle part up into a couple different acts. And so I think that helps me a lot because yeah, when you just look at 3-act, I'm like, oh my God, this middle section is so long. There's so much has to happen. Whereas like if you break it down into like little, like smaller chunks, I think that works a lot better.
Yeah, for sure. I really like John Truby's Anatomy of Story. I've talked about it a lot on this channel. I don't rigidly plot to this because I like to have a little more wiggle room, but if I'm ever feeling stuck, I really like looking at the Anatomy of Story's like plot points to help me think like, oh, he says an attack by an ally would be good around this spot. Could I have something like that? And if you Google like John Truby or Anatomy of Story Scrivener templates, people have like made Scrivener templates of this, which I found really nice and helpful. Yeah, let us know in the discussion section if there are other story methods that you've tried before and really enjoyed. We've also got, if you are looking for more, you're like super hyped for NaNoWriMo, you want to keep going, keep planning, we do have a full Preptober series from 2020 where we did workshops on plot, character, was it world? I don't remember. There was 4 of them, and the last one was a brainstorming bonanza, but it should get you through a lot. So I'm putting that link in the discussion section right now. Does anyone? Oh, Missy K asked, is the Scary Bakery Notion template yours? I don't see it on Rebecca's. I adapted it. Let me pull it up. Talk amongst yourselves.
You can see a Scary Bakery sounds very Megan.
it's very
Well, here, what for the people that are participating in Nano, what type of story are you planning to write? Contemporary, sci-fi, space opera?
Sci-fi.
Nice.
probably horror.
Also nice.
I'm gonna be doing a YA rom-com.
Wow, what a surprise. Who would have guessed?
I think I'm gonna try to write like a narrative game, but I don't know which one way.
Ooh.
Like previously abandoned ideas, I want to like try to put in that format. So we'll see.
Well,
Yeah, I'm doing a horror surprise.
yeah. You? What?
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 I did find the template. I adapted it from Rebecca Mix's master work in progress page, the master WIP page one. I like changed out the photos for ones that better fit the vibe of my story idea. And then if there's anything in a Notion template that I'm like, this is cool, but I don't think I will use it, then I just delete it off the page. All right, yeah. Thank you so much to everyone who came. If we missed your question, you have our deepest apologies. We will be back next week doing, is it a character workshop?
Character workshop, yes.
Character workshop.
Because I want to give people as much notice as possible. The game we played last week, and we kind of had some people jump in to play with us, and other people who maybe wanted to. We're going to be playing the same game we played at the end, the werewolf one, One Night Ultimate Werewolf, for Halloween on our Halloween game night on the 31st, since it's a Sunday. But we're going to be starting at 9 p.m. Eastern, I think is what we said.
Yeah.
We'll say for spooky vibes, but also because some of us have kids that trick or treat and stuff. So
it's going to be so chaotic and fun. So hopefully you are around. You will join us virtually for that.
Oh yeah, we're all gonna be hyped up on sugar and in costume and be like ready to go.
It's gonna be amazing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be Steve from Blue's Clues.
I love it.
All right. Well, don't forget to please like and subscribe. If you have not liked and subscribed to us yet, we would love it if you're a regular viewer of our channel. And if you don't, we would still love it if you came back. We're here on Sundays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time every Sunday. And yeah, thank you so much. Thank you to Des and Emma for preparing stuff for tonight. And we will see you later. Bye.
Bye.